There are places on Earth where the cold is not just something you feel, it's something you live with, where stepping outside is a calculated decision, where metal can hurt you, machines stop working, and even simple daily routines require planning. Right now, we are in Yakutsk, the coldest city on Earth. In the deepest parts of winter, temperatures here can drop below -50 degrees Celsius. During those months, the city is often covered in frost fog, visibility disappears, and the cold dominates everything. But today, it's early February. The fog has mostly faded, and the temperature sits around -33. Still brutally cold, and more than enough to remind you where you are. Yakutsk is located in the far east of Russia, built on permanently frozen ground known as permafrost. Around 300,000 people live here year-round, not temporarily, not seasonally. This is home. People here don't fight the cold, they adapt to it. Every detail of daily life, from food and clothing to buildings, transport and infrastructure, has been shaped by temperatures that most people will never experience. With the help of a local cameraman filming directly inside the city, we're going to take a closer look at how Yakutsk actually works, not through extremes alone, but through everyday life. How people prepare to go outside, what they eat to stay warm, how the city is built to survive, and why, despite everything, life here continues as normal. In Yakutsk, food is not about preference or comfort. It's about heat, energy, and endurance.
А килограмм стоит? По цене?
A typical day starts with foods that would feel heavy anywhere else. Fatty pancakes, eggs, cheese, butter, jam, and meat. In temperatures like this, carbohydrates alone burn too fast. They don't last. Fats, on the other hand, release energy slowly and keep the body warm for longer periods. This pattern continues throughout the day. Meals are built around meat, fish, and animal fat. Horse meat, beef, frozen fish, broths, and soups are common. Vegetables exist, but they're limited, expensive, and secondary. Farming here is almost impossible for most of the year. The ground never fully thaws. Food here is fuel. Processed foods don't perform well in this climate. Chocolate becomes rock hard. Sugary snacks freeze solid and offer little warmth. Meat, on the other hand, stays usable even when frozen and can be eaten cooked or raw depending on the situation. In Yakutsk, diet isn't cultural tradition alone. It's a survival system. What people eat here is shaped by one question: will this keep me warm long enough to function? In Yakutsk, going outside is never spontaneous. It's a process. Before stepping out, people prepare the same way you would prepare equipment, layer by layer, without skipping steps. Thermal underwear goes on first, then thick inner layers. Followed by heavier outer clothing designed to trap heat and block wind. Nothing is worn loosely. Everything has a purpose. Feet are protected carefully. Not one pair of socks, but 2 or 3. Cold travels upward from the ground faster than people expect. The face is treated as the most vulnerable area. Skin here freezes quickly. Scarves are wrapped high. Hats are pulled down low. Ears, cheeks, nose, nothing is left exposed. Many people breathe through fabric, not directly through open air, to protect their lungs from the cold. Gloves are checked twice. Zippers are adjusted indoors. Before opening the door, there's a brief mental checklist. Gloves on, face covered, keys ready. Because once you step outside, fixing mistakes is no longer comfortable. In Yakutsk, clothing is not a style choice, it's a survival tool. Modern synthetic jackets work well in many cold places, but here they reach their limit quickly. At temperatures below -30, thin insulation and lightweight materials lose effectiveness. Heat escapes faster than the body can replace it. That's why fur and wool still dominate Yakutsk winters. Fur works differently than synthetic fabrics. Inside the fur, millions of tiny air pockets trap warmth and block wind. This insulation stays effective even in extreme cold, where moisture freezes instantly and synthetic fibers become stiff. Wool layers underneath help regulate heat and manage sweat, which is dangerous in low temperatures. Walking through the city, you'll see fur coats, fur-lined boots, and heavy hats everywhere. These aren't luxury items or fashion statements. They are tools designed for this environment. Local stores specialize in winter clothing built specifically for Yakutsk conditions. Thick, heavy, and durable. Comfort comes second. Function comes first. In Yakutsk, machines struggle just as much as people do. At temperatures like this, cars are never taken for granted. Engine oil thickens until it moves like syrup. Batteries lose power rapidly. Plastic becomes brittle. If a car is turned off for too long, restarting it can become impossible without external heating. That's why many engines are left running for hours, sometimes all day. You'll often see cars parked outside shops or apartment buildings with no one inside, the engine still on. It's not carelessness, it's prevention. Some drivers use thick thermal covers to wrap their vehicles when parked overnight. These covers trap heat around the engine and protect sensitive parts from freezing. Others rent heated garages, an option mostly available to wealthier residents. Some residents simply accept that their car will be unusable in winter. They park it at the beginning of the season and don't touch it again until spring. It's a conscious trade-off. Maintaining a car in this cold costs time, fuel, and constant attention. Public transport becomes the simpler option. For many families, that's exactly how daily life works. Children go to school by bus. Adults commute the same way. Yakutsk relies heavily on public transportation during winter, and the city has adapted to make that possible. Across the city, you'll find heated bus stop shelters, enclosed cabins designed to protect people from the cold while they wait. Inside, it's warm enough to remove gloves. Some shelters have seating, lighting, and even USB charging ports. Waiting outside in -30 for even a few minutes can be dangerous, especially for children and the elderly. These warm pavilions allow life to keep moving safely. People commuting, students traveling to school, workers getting across the city. In Yakutsk, cold doesn't just shape the city. It replaces entire appliances. Walking through residential areas, you'll notice food hanging from balconies and window frames. Bags of meat, whole fish, sometimes bread or frozen meals stored openly in the air. This isn't unusual here. It's practical. A standard refrigerator operates at around -5 to -8 degrees Celsius. Deep freezers go lower, reaching roughly -30. But in Yakutsk, winter temperatures often stay below that for weeks at a time. In February, the air itself is already cold enough to preserve food naturally. For this reason, many homes don't rely heavily on refrigerators or freezers during winter. Using electricity to keep food cold becomes unnecessary. The outside air does the job more efficiently and consistently than any machine. Meat and fish remain frozen solid. Bacteria can't spread. Food stays preserved for long periods without spoilage. In Yakutsk, cold isn't just endured, it's used. And this way of storing food naturally leads to one of the most distinctive places in the city, the markets, where frozen meat and fish are sold openly, without refrigeration, even in the middle of winter. Yakutsk is built on ground that never truly thaws. Beneath the city lies permafrost, soil that remains frozen year-round, even during summer. It's solid, hard and stable as long as it stays cold. But once heat reaches it, that stability disappears. Because of this, buildings in Yakutsk are never placed directly on the ground. Instead, they are raised on concrete piles. These pillars lift the structure above the surface, creating a gap between the building and the frozen soil below. Cold air is able to circulate freely underneath, preventing heat from being trapped in the ground. This design is not optional, it's essential. Buildings are warm spaces. People live inside them. They cook, heat their homes, and generate constant warmth. If that heat were allowed to pass directly into the permafrost, the soil would begin to soften. Over time, the ground would shift, crack, and collapse. Without pile foundations, buildings here would slowly sink, tilt, or tear themselves apart. Every apartment block, office building, and major structure follows this same principle. It may not look unusual at first glance, but it's one of the most important systems keeping the city standing. In Yakutsk, what usually runs underground is placed in plain sight. Natural gas pipes, water lines, internet cables, and electrical systems are built above ground, fully visible throughout the city. This isn't a design choice, it's a necessity. Burying pipes beneath the surface would introduce heat directly into the permafrost. Hot gas flowing through underground pipes would slowly warm the frozen soil below, weakening it over time. Once the ground begins to soften, everything above it becomes unstable. Cracks form, foundations shift, roads deform, buildings can sink or collapse. To prevent this, Yakutsk avoids disturbing the ground as much as possible. Pipes are raised above the surface, allowing cold air to circulate around them and keep the soil frozen. This also makes maintenance safer and more efficient. Leaks are visible immediately. Repairs can be made without digging into frozen earth. Visibility here equals safety. Not everyone in Yakutsk lives in modern apartment buildings. Scattered throughout the city are older wooden houses, many of them inhabited by lower-income residents. These homes often lack indoor plumbing. Running water and sewage systems are difficult to install where the ground is permanently frozen, and for some families, upgrades are simply not affordable. Instead, outdoor container toilets are used. These are small huts placed outside the house. Inside, waste is collected in buckets rather than flushed away through pipes. At regular intervals, the waste is emptied into larger sealed containers and removed through organized collection systems. In most parts of the world, this would pose serious health risks. But here, the extreme cold changes everything. Harmful bacteria struggle to survive and spread at these temperatures. The freezing environment acts as a natural barrier, preventing epidemics even with open waste systems. Still, this way of living is not easy. In winter, using these outdoor toilets requires preparation, speed, and resilience.
Так, все, выходи. Выходи.
You can describe the cold, you can measure it, you can even survive it, But the real way to understand it is to test it. So instead of just talking about -30, we decided to let the cold speak for itself. Before we try anything complicated, we start with something simple, a pot of boiling water. Just seconds ago, it was bubbling. My local friends step outside and throw the water into the air.
Давай. Раз, два, три.
Instead of falling back down as liquid, it explodes into a cloud of ice crystals. At these temperatures, water doesn't cool slowly. It freezes mid-air, not in minutes, in an instant. Next, we try something less dramatic, but more revealing. We prepare 3 fruits: a banana, an orange, and an apple, normally soft, normally fragile. One by one, we use them as tools. An apple against a screw, an orange, even a banana. Instead of bending or breaking immediately, they behave like solid objects. Like wood, like plastic. In extreme cold, water inside the fruit freezes completely, turning something soft into something rigid.
Ну-ка, давай еще других кинь, других.
Not all fruits survive the test. Some crack under pressure. But the point is clear.
Переверни его, где он. О, все, показал.
Finally, something even more practical: wet clothes. Inside, they're soaked in water, fresh from a bucket. In most climates, they would slowly dry. Here, they don't dry, they freeze. My local friends hang the wet clothes outside. Minutes pass. The fabric stiffens. What was soft and flexible becomes rigid. A shirt turns into a frozen shape of itself.
Еще раз, да?
Постирал я сегодня белье.
You can lift it, and it holds its form. In this climate, moisture is not an inconvenience. It's a danger, because anything wet doesn't stay wet. It turns to ice. To understand how people survive here, you have to see where their food comes from. In Yakutsk, the central market, the rynok, is more than a place to shop. It's part of the city's survival system. The market operates in open air, even in deep winter. Meat and fish are laid out on tables without refrigeration, without glass displays, without insulation. None of it is needed. At temperatures like these, bacteria simply cannot survive. Everything is already frozen solid. Large fish lie stacked like logs. Horse meat, rabbit and other game are sold openly, stiff and pale in the cold air. Vendors work for hours outside, handling frozen food with bare hands. Farming is nearly impossible here. The ground remains frozen most of the year, so vegetables are limited and expensive. Meat, on the other hand, is accessible, filling, and calorie-dense. Exactly what the body needs in extreme cold. One of the most common foods here is frozen fish, eaten raw. It sounds extreme, but it's normal in Yakutsk. The fish is sliced while frozen, dipped in salt and pepper, and eaten immediately. This method is called stroganina. In this cold, parasites cannot survive. The fish is safe to eat, and eating it frozen reduces heat loss from the body. It's efficient, practical, and deeply rooted in local tradition. Before going any further, we wanted to hear directly from the people who live here. We asked locals a few simple questions: how they dress for the cold, what temperature feels normal to them, and what the coldest day they remember really was.
Вопрос, сколько слоев на вас сегодня одето? Сколько слоев одежды на вас сегодня одето? Ну, типа, у меня кофта, там 2 кофты, 3.
А сколько это?
Да, да, да.
У меня вот куртка, потом вот жилет, потом еще одна кофта есть, потом еще такой жилет пуховой. И водолазка. И этот вот штаны вот специально потом.
Здравствуйте.
Подскажите, а что на вас сегодня надето?
На мне ботинки армейские и вот пуховик. И там, ну, кофточка легкая, маечка, все. Шапочка вот есть. Варежки принципиально не ношу.
Ну, как минимум шуба, теплая кофта, теплые штаны. Ну, вот варежки забыла, ну, прохладно, да.
На мне очень много кофт, три одежды, и еще я замерзаю.
Как это 3 одежды? Ну, перечислите. Майка, там, что там еще?
Футболка, 3 кофты и куртка.
Ну, на ноги что-то одели?
Да, получается 3 штанов, портки, обычные штаны, повседневки и теплые штаны.
Ну, а на ноги валенки, что там у вас?
И унты.
Какая температура для вас самая комфортная?
Вообще, да?
Угу.
Нормальная, да? Ну, 25, 30.
Плюс.
Минус.
Ну, плюс 30. Нормально.
Ну, честно говоря, точно не в Якутске. Я вот минус 10, минус 15, это было бы, наверное, оптимально, но вот бегаем в минус 50.
А для меня благоприятно это где-то минус 20. Но, в принципе, комфортно ходить пешком на долгие расстояния. В принципе, это тепло для нас.
А какую самую низкую температуру вы помните за свое время здесь проживания?
Самый низкий?
Ага.
60.
60, да?
Минус 54 примерно. Я в школу не пошел. Ну, был туман, мороз. Я не пошел в школу, классно было. Посидел дома в тепле.
Ну, самая холодная зима в Якутске мне, потому что я живу в городе, запомнилась, когда было минус 55. Вот на удивление, тогда это был 3 класс, начальная школа, почему-то казалось, что тепло. И вот сухой мороз запомнил, что мы играли в снежки. Снежки, правда, не очень лепились, но мы все равно в них играли.
Я помню погоду в минус 52. Причем в школе мы, получается, уже ходили в школу и пешком.
To understand why a city like this can exist at all, you have to look beneath the streets. Long before daily life adapts to the cold, scientists study what makes it possible. At the Permafrost Institute, researchers focus on the frozen ground that Yakutsk is built upon. Here, permafrost isn't a seasonal condition, it's permanent. Layers of soil have remained frozen for tens of thousands of years, locking water, organic material, and even ancient remains in place. Through drilling samples, temperature monitoring, and long-term observation, scientists study how deep the frozen ground extends, how it reacts to heat, and what happens when it's disturbed. Their work explains why buildings must be lifted above the soil, why pipes cannot be buried, and why even small changes in temperature matter. This research isn't abstract. It directly shapes how the city is built, how it functions, and how people live their everyday lives. And then, just a short distance away, you can see the results with your own eyes. At the Kingdom of Permafrost, science turns into something physical. The entrance leads underground to ice tunnels carved directly into frozen earth. Inside, the temperature stays constant at around -10 degrees, even when summer temperatures above ground rise far higher.